Hello, everybody. Hi, I am Judy Maddox. I am chair of our Western North Carolina Sierra Club, also known as Wenoca. Please like us on Facebook, on Meetup, and on our website, which is called wenoca.org. And Wenoca is just the first two letters of Western North Carolina, W-E-N-O-C-A. And if you do not receive our bi-monthly notices, please go on the site and sign up, please, so that you can receive our action alerts. And there are a number of them that will be coming up about Mountain Valley Pipeline and our ongoing programs. We are sponsored by the state of North Carolina, providing this wonderful Zoom link. Tonight's program, as you know, is this fall's election. Oh my gosh, the high stakes for the environment could not be higher. Ken Brame is our political chair of Western North Carolina Sierra Club, Wenoca. He is going to present. Our next online program will be the election update. It will be 2 days after the November 3rd ending, but as you know, absentee ballots will continue to be counted for some time. But we will have a wonderful program after this brief update called Mapping Trails in Western North Carolina, A Journey of Exploration. This is by a map maker, a naturalist and explorer, Ken Karsnowski. And he is well known to this area and the Blue Ridge Naturalists and the hiking community. You will enjoy meeting new trails in the West and how Ken does his technology and his sustainability and introduce you to where you maybe have never been. Well, surprise to all of you, Election Day is November 3rd. Oh my gosh, it's right around the corner. So right now, we suggest that you confirm your registration status by going to NC Voter Lookout. There were a number of people who were from registration, and you can, if you cannot confirm, if you've moved to a different apartment, please register to vote. You have to do that by October 9th. You only have one more week to make sure you register. Although early voting dates are October 15th to October 31st, Halloween, you can register during early voting if you bring 2 pieces of identification with you, with your address, such as your electric bill, etc. Absentee ballots, you can apply for those all the way through the end of the month, October 27th. Your request has to be in then on October 27th. They have a new online application, which is right here. You can go to our website, wenoca.org, and get this website. You can also do the traditional request of absentee ballot by, again, printing it out, signing it, returning it. You can return in person to 77 McDowell, that's our Board of Election Services, and you can mail it or fax it. This is your request. Once you get the absentee ballot, you have to return that by election day. If you mail it, it has to be postmarked election day. It will be counted. You can trace it. There will be a tracer on the ballot. You have to have a witness, only one, to witness that you are voting. They don't have to see who you're voting for, but they have to sign, print, and put their address on the outside of your envelope for it to be acknowledged. You can choose to not use your absentee ballot. You can go to vote in person. You can bring the absentee ballot back to early voting if you choose, and whichever gets there first. If you mail it, then they won't let you vote in person, but if you go in person and they have not received your absentee ballot, they will allow you to vote in person. We're expecting a 40% vote rate by absentee and a 60% vote rate in person. Do not wait until the last minute. Please go and vote early. We at Sierra Club need help with the election. We need volunteers to send to your personal contacts our endorsements. We endorse. We spend a lot of time interviewing all the candidates up and down the ballot, all the way from governor down to the city. The candidates that most people don't know are the judges, and also the Council of State, like the Superintendent of Election, very important. Commissioner of Agriculture, very important. Our endorsements are on our website right now. We also need people to help hand out in person our endorsement cards at early voting and election day sites. We have a lot of plans to keep that safe. We ask you to wear a mask, to wear gloves, to social distance. We are going to show you later in the program a huge sign to wear around your neck, 11 by 17, that says Sierra Club endorsements. And we will have 5-foot signs that people can see, certainly from a distance. Contact me or go to our website to please help with this election effort. People need to know the judges, the education. They need to know everyone, not just the president. The census now, according to the courts, has been extended throughout this month. Only 60% of us have taken the census, and as you know, this is what determines a lot of funding and our representation. It draws the lines, or it will create our representation in Congress and locally. So please take the census. So now Ken Brame is going to introduce this fall's election, High Stakes for the Environment. He is the Wenoca, Western North Carolina political chair. And if you have questions and answers, please write that in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we will ask the questions at the very end. So now introducing you to Ken Brame.
Okay, thank you, Judy. I appreciate everybody attending tonight. I know that most people have more Zoom calls and opportunities to do Zoom than you can imagine, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening, because we want to talk a little bit about this fall's election and really what's at stake for the environment in North Carolina as well as nationally. So step one is to make sure that I can move my screens. Come on. Okay, try that again. There we go. So I think I don't have to tell anybody how critical and what we've been under as far as threats to the environment and denial of climate change and everything else at the federal level, pulling out of the climate accords, and in general, just denying climate change at the federal level and gridlock and trying to roll back as much as possible all of the good things that have been done. So we know that's happening at the national level. You may not be aware that our North Carolina, and of course that's been going on since 2017, but in the North Carolina General Assembly, we've also had our environmental protections under threat since 2011, when we had a new anti-environmental majority and leadership take over our North Carolina General Assembly. And during that period, they have systematically rolled back protections, failed to pass anything new in the way of protections, and seem much more interested in creating laws to protect polluters rather than enforcing our environmental laws. So we've had some real challenges here, and fortunately, this year we hope to change that. But before I start talking about what's at stake this fall, I want to roll the calendar back a little bit to this time in 2018. And in the fall of 2018, we had some remarkable victories. Just amazing. Sierra Club endorsed 120 candidates in 2018. 70% of our candidates won, but probably most importantly is that we were able to elect enough pro-environmental state house and state senate candidates to break the supermajority and be able to now uphold Governor Cooper's vetoes in spite of heavily gerrymandered districts. It was really an uphill battle in 2018 because the districts were heavily gerrymandered, unfair. Here in Buncombe County, we had a situation where we had two districts that were drawn to elect two Republicans and should have elected two Republicans. Fortunately, because of hard work by Sierra Club and many other folks and having great candidates, we were able to flip those two. But it wasn't until 2018 that we really were able to make significant progress. So looking a little bit further, 42 of our 62 endorsed candidates won, but we defeated 10 anti-environmental incumbents in the North Carolina House. And as part of that, 2 of those 10 were Joe Sam Queen and Ray Russell. And every one of those seats were critical to our ability to uphold Governor Cooper's veto so we could block bad environmental legislation and other bad legislation. In the North Carolina Senate, 17 of our 22 endorsed candidates won. And of those, 6 knocked off anti-environmental incumbents and gave the state Senate exactly the right number of votes they needed to block overriding of the governor's veto and to block bad environmental bills. So just a huge victory. In addition to that, all 4 of our statewide candidates that the Sierra Club endorsed and worked for were also won in that year, including 3 Court of Appeals judges and the Supreme Court Anita Earls, who gave us a 5-1 majority at that time in the state Supreme Court. Since then, the governor's been able to appoint and fill a vacancy, so that we now have 6-1 environmental majorities in the Supreme Court that Sierra Club has endorsed. All 5 of those candidates, and the one that was appointed, we've endorsed for this election. So real victory. How did we do that? Well, we raised money. We raised over $144,000 for the 2018 election cycle. And of that, over 70% was raised here in Western North Carolina by our own fundraising efforts here locally in 2017 and 2018. We focused all of that money on winnable, critical, close races. We love, for example, Susan Fisher. She's been a great environmental champion, but in 2018, she had a safe district. We didn't give her any money. We put money into about 28 to 30, 32 of the most competitive races in the state. And that's where all the money went, including over $100,000 that was donated directly to those 31 candidates to make sure that they had the funds they needed to run competitive races. In addition to that, we were able to use that money to hire 3 organizers, and they worked for 8 weeks prior to the 2018 election in these key districts that we were targeting. And we later in 2019 deployed an organizer in a special election for Congressional District 9, which came up a little bit short, but we were there fighting to try to flip that seat as well. We had boots on the ground that really, these volunteers and the organizers helped us knock on over 5,000 doors. We called 5,000 potential environmental voters to make sure they voted that were unlikely to vote. We texted over 9,500 members and supporters. We send out hard copy mailings with our endorsements to over 90,000 members and supporters statewide. And we printed more than 65,000 endorsement cards for distribution at the polls. So a lot of activity by our volunteers, and it was made possible because of some of the money we raised. And what did that mean? What were we able to accomplish by electing those people? Because it doesn't help to just elect people. What's in it? What do we gain by that? Well, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, the governor could veto really bad and extreme bills, and those vetoes will be upheld. In the first 2 years, between 2016 and 2018, almost all of his vetoes were overridden by the majority in the state Senate, in the state House, and that ended after the election in 2018. The other thing is that I talked a lot about our success in electing judges, both in 2015 and on up through 2018. And because of that, we were able to get a ruling in North Carolina and North Carolina state courts that says extreme gerrymandering was unconstitutional under the North Carolina state constitution. And they required that district lines be redrawn for Congress as well as state House and state Senate. In addition to that, we were able to block some really damaging bills. Duke Energy right now, in order to get a rate hike to build more gas-powered plants or things like that, they have to go to the Public Utilities Commission and get that approved. Duke was trying very hard to get a bill passed that would allow them to get approval for rate hikes for several years into the future without having to justify those each year. And we fought that, and fortunately, because of the people we elected, we were able to defeat that. It never even passed because of all of that. Second thing is we had a bill that was introduced, and we stopped on some other bills that would have been really bad for the environment. One is right now in North Carolina, if you have electronics, they're not allowed to go into a landfill where they can pollute the water and the land. Instead, they have to be recycled. And there's a small fee on manufacturers that pays for that program. Manufacturers have been trying to get that stopped so they can stop having to pay that fee, and they think they can just go into the landfill. And we were able to keep that bill from passing. So that was a victory. In 2017, they passed, the North Carolina legislature passed a bill that created a moratorium on any new wind farms in the eastern part or in North Carolina. And there were several scheduled to be built in the eastern part of the state that would have provided renewable energy and also provide some much needed economic boost to some very poor counties in the eastern part of the state. We were able to stop that from being extended. It expired and is no longer in place. And now there's some projects starting to go back to work to maybe build more wind power in the eastern part of the state. They tried to introduced a bill that would have created an electronic vehicle fee. So all electric cars would have had to pay a fee, and that fee would have been the highest in the country. And again, we were able to keep that from passing. The legislature also approved Governor Cooper's Utility Commission appointments. And for the first time in a decade, we've got good people in the Public Utilities Commission that are actually challenging on why they want to build more fossil fuel plants, why they need rate increases, and a lot of things that were really exciting. So some really tangible victories that would not have occurred if we hadn't have had those wins in the 2018 election and we hadn't worked as hard as we did to make those happen. So that's history. What are we doing in 2020? What's at stake this fall? Let's look at that a little bit. And certainly huge challenges that we face. While Donald Trump is unpopular with the majority of Americans, his supporters are more likely, are the most reliable voters. They tend to show up and vote in higher numbers and higher percentages than those that don't approve of him. And voters who say climate change is an important trend and an important problem, they tend to vote less frequently, and in many of cases, they don't vote down ballot, all the way down the ballot. They'll vote at the top of the ticket for president, governor, but not for the judges or local elections. So that's a challenge we face. So one of the things we have to do is leverage our time and our money to make sure that we can overcome those challenges and end up winning from the top of the ticket all the way down. Our powers and our volunteers. That's something that we have that the opposition doesn't. The polluting companies can put in money, but they don't have the volunteers and the people power that we have. So that's a key ingredient that we have that we try to leverage. So looking ahead to this fall, you know, if any way you look at it, North Carolina is probably going to be the most critical and the closest presidential election vote of any state in the country. Right now, Joe Biden, who's our endorsed candidate, and Kamala Harris, our endorsed vice president candidate, are up anywhere from 1.2% to even, depending on the polls, but averaging about 1% up. So it will be extremely close. Those of you that were around in 2008 realize that Barack Obama won our state by a very thin margin. It was the closest in the country. And in 2012, he lost it, but it was the closest in the country. So that race, if Trump loses North Carolina, there's virtually no way he can be elected president. So we're a key state in determining who our next president's going to be. In the U.S. Senate, we need to pick up 4 seats to take the majority back, to have a pro-environmental majority in the U.S. Senate. Looking at those races, North Carolina, Cal Cunningham, our endorsed candidate for U.S. Senate, is the 4th most likely candidate to flip a Republican-held seat, an anti-environmental Republican-held seat, and to take the majority. So it is absolutely critical that he win our state. Otherwise, we'll have gridlock even if we elect a President Biden for the next 4 years. We can't let that happen. So that's a critical race. The good news is he's up slightly at this point, about 3 percentage points. So it's looking promising. But again, it's going to depend on turnout. It's going to depend on making sure people get out and vote and know who to vote for in that race, particularly people that are going to show up just to vote for president. In addition to that, because of the gerrymandering ruling by our state courts, we actually have new congressional seats this time that have been drawn that are fairer than the ones before. Going into this election cycle, there were 3 Democratic pro-environmental candidates that were elected officials and 8 doing my math wrong, 9 anti-environmental Republican candidates elected or congressmen in North Carolina. Because of the redrawing of the districts, 5 of those Republican-held anti-environmental Republican seats are now in play. 2 of them, one around the Raleigh area, Wake County, and one in the Greensboro area, are now likely to be won by Democrats, and for sure we should pick up 2 seats. But there's 3 other seats that are also in play here. And one of those is on the eastern part of the state. We got a great candidate we've endorsed. And then one around the Charlotte area. You'll remember the special election in Congressional District 9. It's a district that goes from the Charlotte suburbs to Fayetteville. And there was voter fraud. It was a special election last year that was very close. But that district is now a bit more favorable as well. But the one that, of course, we're most excited about here in Western North Carolina is Congressional District 11, where we've got an open seat because Mark Meadows moved up to be Chief of Staff for President Trump. Republicans nominated a strongly anti-environmental candidate, 25-year-old Madison Cawthorn, and the Democrats nominated Mo Davis, retired military person, and is running a great race, raising money and doing well. And Mo will actually be joining us about 8 o'clock this evening to say a few words. So if you haven't had a chance to hear from him or meet him, you'll get a chance to. So hang around after the presentation because he will be here to talk to us. So those are some of the federal races that are on the radar this year that are going to be very important and critical to what's going on. And then, of course, statewide, we elected Governor Cooper and Josh Stein last time around. Governor Cooper has been a staunch environmental advocate since he's been in office, not only vetoing bad bills and threatening to veto bad bills, but also coming up with an executive order that would reduce our carbon emissions 60% by 2025, and expand the number of electric vehicles on the road substantially, and really keep us on path for North Carolina to meet the commitments from the Paris Climate Accord. So he's been a real champion for us. Josh Stein has been suing polluting companies and the Trump administration, seems like every other day, on the bad things they're doing to try to stop drilling offshore and a number of other things like that. So we've got to make sure we get these 2 elected. Right now, those are the only 2 other than judicial candidates statewide that we have pro-environmental endorsed candidates in those seats. But we got a number of new seats that are up this year that we can flip and elect a whole slate of statewide pro-environmental candidates, starting with Lieutenant Governor. Now, Lieutenant Governor is probably one of the most critical races other than governor and AG. We could well end up in a situation where in the state Senate, we have a tie in the North Carolina State Senate, and the Lieutenant Governor, just like in the U.S. Senate, the Vice President breaks the tie. Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina breaks the tie and can make the difference on whether or not, if we pick up only 4 seats instead of the 5 to take a clear majority, the Lieutenant Governor will make the difference on who controls and who sets the agenda in the North Carolina State Senate, whether we can start making progress, whether we have to continue to try to block bad bills with under Senate Majority Leader Berger. So critical race. We've got state auditor, we've got ag commissioner. We've got a really dynamic young candidate running, Jenna Wadsworth, running for ag commissioner, who really understands the threat to farmers in this state from climate change and is working hard to try to help them prepare for that if we can get her elected. She understands that putting some solar panel farms on farms could actually help people stay in the farming business by giving them another source of income. So a lot of things that she's doing. Insurance commissioner, another key race. We've got an insurance commissioner candidate running. If he's elected, he will start raising the flags on what the risks are to insurance rates. If people continue to build in floodplains and we don't start dealing with the impacts of climate change. So a strong advocate for that. We've got State Treasurer, Ronnie Chatterjee. State Treasurer controls a huge employee investments for employee retirements for state employees, over $100 billion. And that gives him voting rights for stockholders meetings so that he can push companies to start dealing with climate change and stop investing in fossil fuel infrastructure and things like that. So huge opportunity if we can elect him. We've got a labor commissioner who can start enforcing laws in our pollutions and things that are going on in some of the ag plants in the eastern part of the state. We've got the Secretary of State. We've got a state school superintendent who, if we can elect her, will push to have climate change as part of the curriculum in our schools in North Carolina. So a lot of things at state in these races that most people don't even know much about. But the Sierra Club is endorsed in all these races, and our goal is to get people to make sure they vote in these races as well as just the top of the ticket. And then, of course, the North Carolina General Assembly. We had huge gains in 2018. We picked up a lot of seats that were Republican leaning, and we were able to retire a number of anti-environmental Republicans and replace them with strong environmental advocates like Joe Sam Queen and Ray Russell and people like that in the western part of the state, as well as other parts of the state. Judicial races. We've got North Carolina State Supreme Court. 3 of the 7 seats, I said we've got a 6-1 majority. We could end up ending up with only a 4-seat majority if we don't elect these Supreme Court candidates. And if that happens, we could very well end up in a situation if Joe Biden wins the presidency. History says that 2 years later, there's a backlash. It's a bad year for Democrats and a good year for the party that's out of power. And so we could end up losing that other Supreme Court seat in 2022. We can't take that risk. We've got to make sure that we get all 3 of these candidates elected. Court of Appeals, 5 of the 15 seats are up this year. Again, many cases are settled at that level and never make it to the Supreme Court, North Carolina Supreme Court. So it's critical to elect those people. And we've got a great group of pro-environmental judges running that we've endorsed. Key races in Western North Carolina. I mentioned Ray Russell, Wenoca and Ashe County out near Boone. He won a very narrow victory in 2018 in a tough district. It's slightly better than it was then, but it's still a tough district. So that's one that we can't pick up the seats we need to win the North Carolina, control the legislature if we lose good incumbents like Ray Russell and Joe Sam Queen. Joe Sam Queen is Haywood County, Swain County, Jackson County. Again, Western Carolina University is in that district, and Appalachian State is in Ray Russell's district. And those are 2 of our targeted races. The Sierra Club is targeting to make sure we get those people reelected. Here in Buncombe County, we've been very fortunate. The new district lines, as I mentioned earlier, we had 2 seats that were drawn to elect Republicans. Now all 3 of our state house seats are drawn in a way that they should reelect Susan Fisher, John Ager, and Brian Turner. So for the first time, we're not worried to death. Can we get John and Brian reelected again? They're looking good. We've got to still make sure we help them, that we vote, and they'll be on our endorsement cards. We'll be doing everything we can to get them elected. Julie Mayfield is replacing our longtime environmental champion, Terry Van Dyne, who is not running again this time. She ran for lieutenant governor rather than running for re-election. Julie Mayfield was our environmental champion on the Asheville City Council. She sponsored the resolution to get the city of Asheville to adopt 100% renewable goals. So been a real champion. So we have to get her elected to that seat. And then down in Henderson County, Josh Remillard is our endorsed candidate. And Josh is running against, and it's a tough district. Henderson County is not known for being a bastion of liberalism, but Josh is running a great campaign, raining money and working really hard. But his opponent is a name that may be familiar to those of you who have been around Buncombe County for a while. And that is the person that we defeated, that Brian Turner was able to defeat. He was one of the most anti-environmental members of the North Carolina legislature before Brian Turner defeated him, and was constantly, he was the guy that introduced the bill to take away the water system from the city of Asheville. He moved to Henderson County, and Tim Moffitt is running against Josh. So if we want to make sure Tim Moffitt never gets back to Raleigh, we need to make sure Josh gets elected. So that's a key race as well. Buncombe County Commission. Right now, there's a 4-3 pro-environmental majority with Brownie Newman, chair, and Jasmine Beach Ferrara running for re-election. And it's critical that we get them re-elected again. Both are running against incumbents. Brownie is the incumbent chair, but his opponent is a current incumbent on the Buncombe County Commission that has name ID. So Brownie can't take that race for granted. Jasmine's got a new district. Much of that is new to her, and she's running against, there are two incumbents running against each other, and she's the pro-environmental candidate. We have to make sure she wins. Then we've got two other seats. Terry Wells is running in a seat that's kind of in this part of the county that goes from Sandy Mush and Lester all around up to Weaverville and down into areas of North Asheville. And Terry's a strong candidate, 5th generation farmer, and we have a really good opportunity to pick up a seat there that was previously held by an anti-environmental candidate, but it's an open seat based on the way the new districts were drawn. And then Parker Sloan is running against Joe Belcher. Joe Belcher has voted against almost everything that we've tried to do. He voted to repeal the noise ordinance. He's opposed to the steep slope ordinance. He's opposed to land use planning or any zoning at all in the county. And he's also voted against the 100% renewable goal. So we need to elect Parker and retire Joe Belcher. So that's going to be a critical race, and that may be the closest race in the county commission. So we've got to make sure that happens. Asheville City Council. We've been fortunate to have a strong pro-environmental majority on the Asheville City Council since 2009. So that's exciting. We've got 3 openings this year. 1 incumbent running again and 2 open seats. Julie Mayfield's seat is open. So we've got to make sure, and one other person is not running for re-election. We sent out questionnaires, we interviewed all the candidates, and guess what? We decided all 5 of them would be good on the environment and would be people to be considered for voting. So we're letting you make the choice. We said all 5 are good, all 5 will be on our endorsement card. You get to pick the 3 that you want to elect, and as well the rest of the voters. So that's Asheville City Council. How are we going to do this? How are we going to win all these seats? We're targeting 30-something seats statewide that are our highest priorities. And of those, there are 11 seats in the North Carolina House that can be flipped. So we need to pick up, I think, 7 out of those 11 seats in order to win back control of the North Carolina legislature, so we can go in the offensive. So we can stop playing defense and start passing bills to set climate goals, to encourage more renewable energy, to encourage adding the tax credit back for electric vehicles. If we can take back control of the legislature, we can do that. And in the state Senate, it's actually even maybe a little bit easier. Because of redistricting, there are 2, we need to pick up 5 seats to take the majority, or 4 to tie. And 2 of those are now Democratic leaning seats. We've got 2 really strong environmental candidates that should win election. We'll need to then win 3 of the 5 other potentially competitive seats and not lose any incumbents. In the House, there are 13 seats. We have to pick up, as I said, 7 of those. And so, we've got the opportunities to win seats in Republican leaning districts and seats and in districts that are more fair than before. So how do we do that? How do we make that happen? Well, we're going to spend $200,000 to elect our pro-environmental candidates this fall. Again, of that, $180,000 is our PAC funds. And again, 70% of it was raised here in Western North Carolina. So thanks to all of you that donated and that made that happen. But because of that, we've got the funds we need to be competitive, to make, first of all, direct contributions in the most competitive races. And the most competitive races, we'll be giving anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to those candidates. And the other statewide races, we'll be giving $1,000 to those candidates. So at least they've got some funds from environmentalists to help them win. We're hiring 2 full-time organizers to mobilize our volunteers. And you'll get a chance to meet them a little bit later in this presentation, very shortly. And I think you'll be as excited about them as I am. We're also mailing and emailing our endorsements, over 90,000, I think it's actually closer to 100,000 members and supporters in North Carolina. We're going to be running digital ads targeting environmental voters. So we've got a lot of plans and a lot of ideas and a lot of ways to be effective in a COVID world. We can't knock on doors. That's the one thing we can't do. But we need your help to make it happen. You know, we've got to leverage our volunteers. That's the way we win. And we ask you to do 2 things. First of all, as Judy mentioned earlier, we want you to let your friends know about our endorsed candidates. We want you to give them information that will help them know how to request an absentee ballot, and let them know when early voting starts. Let them know how to check and make sure their address is current and that they're still registered and haven't been accidentally purged. So you can provide your friends that kind of information. And most importantly, to know who our endorsed candidates are so that they vote all the way down the ballot. They don't get down and in the polls and figure out, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were Court of Appeals judges. I don't know who to vote for here. Or, wow, I didn't even know we had a labor commissioner in North Carolina. So we can be helping our friends and helping our cause at the same time. So we're asking you to email, text, call, and contact your friends. We know that everybody's getting way too many emails and texts and calls these days, and most people are ignoring those. But people will answer an email or open an email from somebody they know. They'll read a text from somebody they know, and they'll take a phone call from somebody they know. So you are powerful. You have the ability to get through to those people when nobody else can. So that's important. And secondly, we're asking you to hand out Sierra Club endorsement cards. Why are we handing out endorsement cards? In a presidential election, on average, 8% of voters vote at the top of the ticket. They'll vote for president, maybe governor, senator, but below that, they've never heard of a labor commissioner or state superintendent or court or judges or local county commission or or city council. They just have never realized that they'd be voting on that. They're showing up to vote for president. That's what motivated them. But by having people at the polls and getting our endorsement cards in the hands of 30,000 voters in Buncombe County and another 5,000 in Wenoca County and another 5,000 out in Jackson County, we can make the difference on cutting that drop-off rate significantly. We did this in 2016, and we were able to go back and do an analysis after the election and prove that the drop-off rate in Buncombe County, where we had 200 and something volunteers handing out cards and handed out 25 or 30,000 cards, our drop-off rate was significantly less than the rest of the state. And in a close race, in a race where, let's take the governor's race in 2016, Cooper won by 10,000 votes out of 7 million votes. We were able to prove that we got 3,000 or 4,000 more votes in Buncombe County for him than he should have gotten. We were able to show that we got 3,000 more votes for Mike Morgan for state Supreme Court than he should have gotten had we had the same drop-off rate as the rest of the state. So handing out cards works. It's important. We know it works. We also know that handing out our cards is important because certainly there are people that are going to show up and vote straight Democratic or straight Republican, and they'll take the Democratic plate card or the Republican straight card and be happy. They'll go in, they'll vote those. That's not who we're targeting. We're targeting the 38% of residents in Buncombe County and 33% statewide that are registered unaffiliated. Many of these people don't trust the Democrats, they don't trust Republicans, and our volunteers tell us time after time, people will refuse to take the Democratic or Republican slate cards, but will take our cards and thank us and go in and use that to vote down ballot. So it's critical we can do that. And the same thing with sending out those list of our endorsed candidates to your contacts. You're helping them out, you're making it easier for them to vote down ballot. But in order for us to hand out those 40,000 cards, we've got to get volunteers. You know, we've got to have people there. Now, we're going to be spending some time talking about how you can do that safely in a few minutes. So hang in there. But for you and for everybody you know, we want people to use the Sierra Club endorsed candidate slate cards or slate card list. And you can certainly go to Wenoca.org to find our endorsed candidates and if you don't get something in the mail, which many of you probably will in the next couple of weeks before early voting starts. But it's important to let people know now, if they're filling out absentee ballots, who our endorsed candidates are, and for you to know that before you fill out your absentee ballot cards. So it's not one time where we can just get the word out. We've got to do it now. We've got to do it again before early voting and again before Election Day. So people know who to vote for and vote for our endorsed candidates. So in summary, 2020 elections, I mean, we've all heard the adage, well, this election is the most important one in my lifetime. I've thought that a couple of other times in my life, but this is the one that I really think we don't have any more time on climate change. We can't waste another 4 years at the federal level. We can't waste another decade at the North Carolina level of taking action on climate change. We've got to continue the actions we're taking locally with the City Council in Asheville and their 100% renewable goals and make sure those are implemented. So it's critically important. Sierra Club's got a plan, and we've got a proven track record of ways to make a difference in these elections, and we need your help to do it. We can leverage the power of our volunteers, but we've got to have your help to make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do that safely and easily. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to our two super organizers, Sarah and Alexandria, and let them unmute and turn on their cameras and introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about what they're doing statewide. Sarah, we'll start with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I was having some Zoom audio issues earlier, so I wanted to make sure it did not trickle into this meeting as well. So my name is Sarah. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am in Cramerton, North Carolina, and I am one of your field organizers for the state between now and Election Day. Alexandria and I are really excited to be working with you all here at the Sierra Club. We've had a couple volunteer trainings already that have gone great, and we have a good plan in action of what we'd like to do to help get the vote out here in North Carolina for our endorsed candidates. It'll include phone banking, texting, some email campaigns where you'll write emails to not only your contacts, but some Sierra Club members as well, and utilizing your own social media connections to tell them about our endorsed candidates and educate them how and where to vote within your district. We will have some more trainings coming up soon. We planned out a lot of our calendar earlier today, so hoping just to get some of our scripts approved from compliance so we can start those trainings. I'll be sharing with Ken our Mobilize link that he can share with all of you that'll list all of our upcoming trainings as well as volunteer events and how you can sign up for them.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Alexandria, you want to unmute and turn on your camera? We lost Alexandria.
Oh, she might
Maybe
have.
She might have somehow got kicked off.
She might
or
have.
somehow didn't get in.
Well, she's also very excited to be working
Yes.
with everyone. I'll speak for her on that.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I was part of the interview team for both Sarah and Alexandria, and I can't tell you how excited I was that we were able to hire them and put them to work, and they have exceeded my expectations, which are already very high. So Sarah, thank you, and Alexandria, I'm sorry we missed you. So we'll move on. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, Sarah talked about what we're doing statewide, and we've got our two paid organizers that are working that like crazy. But we're really lucky here in Western North Carolina in that we've got our own super organizer who's a volunteer, and that's Judy Maddox. And if she hasn't called and asked you to volunteer, hang on, she will, type thing. And hopefully you'll make it easy for her and volunteer to do that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judy and let her talk about what we're doing locally here in Western North Carolina.
Well, hi again, everybody. And we want to talk about how to keep you safe. So we want you to volunteer in person. And this is what you would look like. You would wear the mask, every volunteer to be masked, every volunteer to be gloved, and every volunteer to have the big next sign. And the next sign is 11 by 17. It is laminated. It would be over your jacket, and it would say Sierra Club, environmental, clean air, clean water, protect our mountains, so that people will see you at a glance quite a ways away and know what you stand for and that you have cards. A lot of people in the past, they look for us. They look for this card because they know that they need names of judges and they need names of the superintendent of education, et cetera, et cetera. So we will have that, as well as we will have a 5-foot sign that Ken's about to show you, which will be standing up at all of the early voting sites that, again, you will see at a distance: Sierra Club, environmental candidates, clean air, clean water. And if you notice underneath of it, it has a pouch with the endorsement cards where people on their own can reach in, pull out their own cards, and right next to it will be some hand sanitizer. And you as a volunteer need to bring your own hand sanitizer. You as a volunteer needs to social distance. As people are walking past you, you know, if you've done this before, you only have a couple of seconds because people are on a beeline to get to vote. So you'll have to kind of point to your sign, wave your card, and say, hey, environmental candidates, Sierra Club, clean air, clean water, but judges, environmental, education, agriculture. And a lot of times, as soon as you say judges, stops them cold. They turn around and they go, we're voting for judges? And they come back and get a card. So we need your help. We need your help both to send out by your email and by your text and by your calls. And we need people not only in Asheville and Buncombe County, but we need people up in Boone and up in the Watauga, the Jackson areas. We need help for Joe Sam Queen and for Ray Russell. So we need people from the surrounding. So reach out to me. Here is my contact, my phone, or you can go to wenoca.org and I'm listed there. Please let me know. And if you know other people, we need as many folks as you can possibly help recruit for us, because as you know, a lot of people are turning out to be poll workers or are very concerned about safety, and we are all outdoors. None of this is indoors, and we feel like you will be safe, social distance with all of these safety mechanisms. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing. Okay, and go back and oops. Okay, guys, this will be hang with me here. This may or may not work, but I'm hoping to show you guys a video, very short video, and get you in screen share again and see if I can do this where the volume comes through. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And Judy, can you hear that or not?
I cannot hear it, Ken.
Okay, sorry about that. There's some settings that normally are there that I have not been able to find tonight, so you can't hear that, but you will get to see what happens here. But so you get to watch a silent movie for just a second here. And if you have questions, go ahead and put those in either the Q&A, and we'll, as soon as this is over, in about 2 minutes, we'll start taking questions. So go ahead and send your questions in.
To give you some narration on the video, what we are finding out is that a mask and gloves, that you don't have to have a gas mask, you don't have to have hazmat. You are going to be outside, you will wear regular gloves. You can have a table and chair and a box with cards, and certainly this next sign and you will get the attention of folks, but you are going to be there. As people are walking past you, wave at your sign and call out endorsements, environment, Sierra Club, judges, education, agriculture. Make sure that you extend a full 6 feet or have them come up to your grabber. Here is a grabber that can extend your arm. You can also go to a box on a table or to the pouch underneath this 5-foot sign. So however you can be safe.
I think I'm going to go ahead and stop it at this point, and we'll go move back onto the other screen share again.
We have some questions for you, Ken.
Hang on just a second. Let me get the screen share back up quickly here. Whoops. Oh, no. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, what polls do you consider are accurate from a national and state perspective?
Okay, I don't look at any individual poll because I think any individual poll's got a margin of error and they fluctuate. What I look at is averages of polls and weighted averages in particular. I particularly like a site called Nate Silver's 538.com where they weight, they're high quality polls and polls without as good a track record, and they weight the ones a little better. And so that's the polls I go by. And those are the ones I was quoting earlier. I think they've proven to be most accurate. A lot of people say, well, he was predicting Hillary was going to win in 2016. But if you looked at his last forecast, he predicted very closely what the final vote count was. What he didn't predict was the very narrow losses in a few states that flipped the election. So he seems to be the most accurate person that I'm aware of in his polling. So I look at those.
Okay, how tight is Brownie Newman's race?
I'll put it this way. If Brownie loses, don't even turn on your TV. Go ahead and get your bottle of scotch out because it's going to be a terrible night. It should be a win. However, his opponent does have name identification, so we can't take it for granted, but it's certainly something. Can you guys see the screen share?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, next question.
Question about Durham County. Will we have materials in Durham County similar to what we've been showing?
We will potentially, but there are not many really competitive races at the local level there. And right now we're focusing a lot of our efforts on these areas that are more competitive. And Durham County tends to vote very heavily Democratic. And so if we have them, it will be around the university where we have younger voters. But Sarah and group still have to recruit the volunteers there, so I can't speak for sure if that will or will not happen.
Could you describe at our next program, November 5th, which will be 2 days after November 3rd, after the end of the election, what races you think will be done, or what you think will be happening with the absentee ballots? What kind of update are you expecting to give?
What I expect is that I think all of our local races will probably know about. Any race that's not extremely close, I think we'll know about. I think the races we may not know about are some of the council of state races, and we may not know the presidential race by then. North Carolina is unique in that they can go ahead and start processing absentee ballots that are received before Election Day. And so those will be reported that night, the night of the election. So it's only the ballots that come in that are received after Election Day that will not be reported. So we think most absentee ballots will be in by then, where there's a huge amount of education and people are worried about the post office. So I think a lot of people are getting their votes in. So I expect the vast majority of votes will be in. So anything other than the very closest races, I think we'll know where we stand.
All right, question of what early voting sites do we still need many more volunteers? And I'm going to answer that. All 14. So we need you no matter where you live. And we also are looking for Boone and up around Western Carolina for Ray Russell and for Joe Semku and Weaver and Waynesville. So if you're in that area. But here in Asheville and Buncombe County, the #1 site for the most population is South Buncombe Library. We still need people there. #2 is West Asheville Community Center. Need people there. It's right below the West Asheville Library. #3 and 4 are Black Mountain Library, Weaverville Town Hall. #5 and 6, we need Reynolds Village. We need UNCA. 7 and 8, we need Inca Candler. We need Turtle Creek, which is right down from Carolina Theater on Hendersonville Road. We need Bee Tree Fire Department in Swannanoa. We need Fairview Community Center. We need Land of Sky, which is on Leicester Highway. We need Leicester Community Center. So just about Eric Grant. So if you're interested, please contact me and we will talk at length about where you can go, when you can go. It's 17 days, 3 shifts, 10 to 1, 1 to 4, 4 to 7, whatever you feel like you can do. Oh my gosh, we will love you forever and please recruit anybody and everybody.
Good. But I'm going to interrupt our question and answer for just a second and introduce Mo Davis, who's our congressional candidate running in District 11 and one of our 5 pickup opportunities in North Carolina that we want to send to victory on Election Day. And he's a great candidate. Mo, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk to you guys. I'm really grateful to you. You were instrumental in the primary and getting me over the threshold there. And I hope I can count on you again in the general election. If you've been following, you may have seen that we had a good month in September. We did polling back in July, and at that point I was 2 points behind to Mr. Cawthorn. And we just finished polling last Friday. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday they actually conducted the polling. And we got the report in on Monday, but we've gone from 2 down in July to 4 up and present, and 33 days out being 4 points ahead. And what's a Republican leaning district is really a pretty nice spot to be. So we've got to keep working all the way to the finish. We can't do what we did in 2016 and get complacent and think it's in the bag. We've got to work hard. You may have seen over the weekend where Politico is reporting that a super PAC that's funded heavily by Sheldon Adelson and by Chevron Oil, they're dumping $850,000 into the district to run attack ads against me. And on one hand, that's annoying, but on the other hand, we think it confirms our polling, that they know they're losing. They wouldn't be, between them and the Club for Growth, it's going to be over $1 million of attack ads, and they wouldn't be spending that kind of money down here if they thought they were winning. So we think it's an encouraging sign, and we're going to keep working hard at it. The other good news is we just closed out the quarter, and we set a record on Tuesday for single day fundraising, and then we beat it on Wednesday. So we ended up raising, we don't have the final tally, but about $1.1 million for the quarter. And we're, if you're in the area and watching WLOS, you may see our ads on there. They run 32 times a day. We've got a direct mail campaign. You probably won't see that because the direct mail campaign really targets unaffiliated voters that are persuadable. So our polling shows female voters that are unaffiliated in the 18 to 49 age group are the group that we have the greatest opportunity to influence. So we're really targeting them. But all in all, it's been, we're in a good position with 33 days to go to be able to do better things here in Western North Carolina. And I'm really excited. You may have seen too, I mentioned the PAC money flowing in to help Mr. Cawthorn. He put a paper out last week supporting nuclear energy and fracking, which are two things we don't have in Western North Carolina, but those are two of the industries that are part of the super PAC that's supporting him. So they're getting what they paid for. And as I pointed out during the debate last night, we don't have either one of those. We got a lot of sun and we got a lot of wind. So that's the things we ought to be harnessing. And that's what I want to work on. So thank you folks so much for all you're doing. And we're going to win this thing and we're going to do better for Western North Carolina.
Thanks, Mo. And before you joined, we were just talking about all the volunteers we're going to have out at the polls this time. And last time we had to have a separate card to hand out along with our endorsements. This time you're on our card, up near the top, right behind Cal Cunningham, right below him, and below Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is not on our card, in case anybody wants to ask, because we are limited as a PAC of spending $5,000 nationally, and there's just no money to pay for the part of the printing of the cards within that strict limit. That's the only reason he's not there. But I don't think we're going to persuade anybody on election day who to vote for president. I think our goal is to get people down ballot to vote for you and vote for our local candidates, as well as our judges and our other statewide candidates. So we're excited about that. And now I'm going to, let's see, spend just a second and go back. Judy, do you have more questions that are in the queue?
No, we don't, Ken. I think you did a great job. Very appreciative. And Mo, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Judy, I'll let you wrap us up.
Well, I'm going to ask all of you once again to please reach out to me. There's my contact, or on wenoca.org, to help us get information out to your personal contacts by email, phone, text. Certainly sign up to hand out early voting, our endorsement cards, and election day. So please contact me, and please come back next month, November 5th, 2 days after the end of the election, to hear the update, to hear what we know, what we don't know, what we're looking at. And please to hear the majority of the program will be with a wonderful map maker, trailblazer, Ken Namaski, who is going to talk about mapping trails in Western North Carolina, journey of exploration. He's going to talk about being a naturalist and encouraging people to have their own personal relationship with these beautiful trails in Western North Carolina. So thanks to all of you, and we will see you next month. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Mo, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of, I know it's a crazy schedule, and I won't even count how many Zoom calls you've probably been on today, but we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you. And most of all, we want to thank all of you for showing up and listening to our presentation and learning and having an interest in what you can do to help make a difference this fall. So thanks again.